Hi there, folks. Why Guy here again. As usual, welcome to my home on this beautiful day. And this video is called The Why Guy Believes in Faith. Now, what I hear and what I used to teach all the time is that you must believe in Jesus to be saved. Okay, that's the rhetoric. All right? And, but what if I don't believe? Am I not saved? Or am I unsaved? Generally, the answer you get from the Christian religion and the Christian community is yes. That's correct. You are not saved. You are unsaved because you don't believe. And according to that dogma and the doctrine of that particular religion, if you are not saved and you are unsaved, then the end result is eternal separation from God. And usually that place is considered hell. All right? A place reserved for the devil and his angels. Well, but I thought sinners are the ones. Now, I'm just speaking as if I was just an average Joe on the street kind of a guy, okay? But I thought only sinners are the ones who went to hell, according to the Christian dogma. And for some odd reason, Christianity teaches that Christians are no longer sinners because they're believers. How does that work? Okay? Yet all Christians sin. All the time. Daily. Okay? Now, if you're an honest Christian or an honest believer, you'll admit that. But yet, sin is what supposedly gets you into hell. And people will say, well, no, it's not sin. It's unbelief in Jesus, not believing in Jesus. It's unbelief that gets you in hell. So if unbelief, okay, let's just think about this just for a second, folks. Put on your thinking caps. Try to look at this objectively, just a little bit. If unbelief is what gets a person into hell, the question of the day then is unbelief a sin? Now, I looked up, okay, believe and unbelieve. Unbelief, in the Greek, it's pretty much the same word with a little twist to it. I read it out of the New American. It was 228 times, King James 207, NIV 262, Revised Standard 217. Right there, that should tell you something. All those different numbers, they're not consistent, but that's a whole other rabbit trail to chase, that there's not a consistency at all, and how words have been translated right there. That should bring up a red flag, but let's not even go there. Let's just stick with this. Now, the definitions, okay, in the Greek, for all of the word usages in the New Testament, of course, for believe or unbelieve is to make full, faithful. That's obviously believe and believe. Conviction of the truth, to think to be true, persuade. Faithless, that's obviously unbelief. Not to be trusted, unbelief. Unfaithful, unbelief. Have no belief, refuse to believe. And also the last definitions are brother or sister, and that's in reference to a noun, masculine or feminine, of course, of a believer, speaking of a believer. Now, in the same order that I just mentioned those, in the Greek, it's plairophoreo, pistas, pistastis, pistio, petho, opestas, opisteo, opetheo, and odelphos, and odelphe. Now, that's the brother and the sister. The phe was the feminine. Well, in not one place in all these scriptures that I read, okay, out of the 262 times it was in the NIV, I read probably over 200 of them, of these scriptures, just to get kind of a feel of what was going on when that word came into word usage, And out of all of over 200 places that I looked, not one place did it say unbelief was a sin. The sin, that's going to send you to hell. Obviously, if you think about it technically, the correct definition of sin is missing the mark. Now, if you ran with that, missing the mark, then of course unbelief is missing the mark. So technically it's sin, but not the way Christianity teaches it. It is, okay? And nowhere in any of these verses is sin, the ramification, I should say, of unbelief, the ramification is hell. It's not mentioned in all of these verses. But yet that's supposed to be the end result. The end result of not believing in Jesus. But Jesus said you must believe to be saved. Well, the saved he was talking about wasn't the saved that Christianity teaches, folks. It simply wasn't. And the analogy I'm going to give is this. If a parent has a parent has one of their children that's just gone off the deep end. Of course, none of us know of anything like that in real life. But if, let's say this child has gone off and, excuse my sarcasm, let's say a child goes off and gets involved with drugs and ends up in prison for theft and what have you. And that child just happens to hate your guts. And that child blames you for the reason why they turn to drugs and crime. And they're estranged and they'll have nothing to do with you. They don't return your calls. They don't return your letters. Have nothing to do with you. And sometime in some place, this is just a story, analogy, there somewhere they turn around and, you know, and they start making those phone calls and they get their act together, is a term that's used, and they start building a relationship with you. Guess what, folks? That relationship is saved. That's the kind of saved Jesus was talking about. That you've got to believe to be saved. It's not about believing to be saved. You got to believe or else you're not, to be saved from a place, from a pagan place called hell. Jesus was talking about being saved to have a relationship. It's all about relationship, folks. It's not about heaven and hell. Get this stuff out of our brainwashed brains. And you'll see it. You'll get it. It's all about relationship. Saved to have a relationship with God. Okay? The Christian religion puts the cart when it comes to belief. They put the cart before the horse. The doctrines of men have made the things that Jesus said about believe. They made the gospel bass-ackwards. Okay? And let me explain. Basically, and as an analogy, the Christian religion teaches us to breathe. We must breathe in order to get air. Well, on the surface, that sounds legit, doesn't it, folks? But what if there was no air to breathe? All the breathing in the world isn't going to do you any good whatsoever. Okay? Now, my wife and I, we took scuba lessons, even advanced search and rescue. And one of the things they would, to get certified, they'd take you down in the darkest, dingiest, blackest lake somewhere, and rather claustrophobic. My wife enjoyed it much more than I did, obviously. Anyway, one of the ways the instructors would keep track of you, okay, and watch you is they would look at you. They'd get their mask right in your face, and they would look right in your eyes. And they can tell if they see panic in your eyes, they know something's wrong. They were always swimming by and putting their face in your face, you know, during some of these things we did, and to see if you had panic in your eyes. Now, there also a little sign language was taught, you know, you'd have to because you can't talk underwater. And let's say at one point in time I glanced down at my gauge, and I noticed I'm out of air, and I can't breathe. And the scuba instructor gets in front of me, and he looks at me, and he sees I'm panicking. And would it make sense to you, my viewer, for that instructor to simply say, well, breathe in order to get air? But there is no air to get. That's my whole point. When the Christian religion tells you that you must believe to be saved, and why I'm saying that they put the horse before the cart, is because faith, folks, Faith is the air. So we can believe. Okay, faith is the gift that's given to us. Now think about this. It has to be a gift in the first place. It has to belong to someone else in the first place before it can be given away. So who did it belong to before it's offered to us? It belongs to Christ. The Christ kind of faith. If you guys look up in Galatians 2:16, it talks about the faith of Christ. In Philippians 3:9, it says the faith of Christ. However, there's only, I read it in 3 different Bibles, in Young's and in the Greek Bible, and believe it or not, the King James all say the faith of Christ. But yet, the New King James switched it and made it the faith in Christ. 2 completely different things. Revised Standard, the faith in Christ. NIV, in. American Standard, in. Okay? Totally different. The difference of night and day, because one is based upon your faith, and the correct Greek interpretation is based upon the faith of Christ. Christ faith, that gift that He has, that He gives to us at the time, okay, at the time that we need it, in order to what? To believe. Okay? I hope this made sense, folks. It's so important that we don't put the like I said before, we don't put the cart before the horse. And all the time we're just rambling off that we've got to believe in Jesus to be saved without even knowing how we believe in the first place, as you know, and then not even really knowing what saved means. We're just following along with the Christian rhetoric and the brainwashing and the dogma. It's got to stop, folks. It's got to stop. Well, anyway, consider what I've shared. And I hope that this planted a seed of doubt, that maybe you were taught incorrectly out of ignorance, not out of malicious, but just out of ignorance. And that it's all about relationship. It's not about heaven and hell and being saved from. It's about being saved to. Have this wonderful relationship with a wonderful God. Signing off for now. Thank you for viewing.